note that we are here for the briefing session for the appointment of investment advisor at the VAR University of Technology. So it's the appointment of investment advisor at the VAR University of Technology. Colleagues, if you're not here for the session, of course, you're welcome to stay, but just note that the tender is for the specified project that I've mentioned. Colleagues, my name is Tabo Mampuru. I am a contracts manager here at Perco SA, and I will be facilitating this process on behalf of the institution. I am joined by my other colleagues in the session, notably Mr. Yusuf Ahmed from VUT, who in this case is the project owner in that regard. I'm also joined by my colleagues at Perco, Polisa Makongwa and Moleshoro Makolo, who are also in this session. Important colleagues, to confirm your attendance of the session is to please insert your company details in the chat box of this session. So you'll see at the top there's a chat box section. Please insert there your company name, contact person, contact details, and email address. That is the mechanism that we're going to use to verify that indeed you have attended this session. I have already shared that it is a compulsory session. So the important part is that we need to verify that indeed you have attended. So please insert your details in that chat box so that again we can verify that you have attended. I will be saying this repeatedly throughout the session. Colleagues, please don't make an error in not inserting your details there. As that is what we're going to use. In the tender document itself, there is a certificate that obviously you'll need to sign that you did attend, but over and above that, the key aspect is that you do insert your details in there. Colleagues, like I've stated, the tender is for the appointment of an investment advisor, bid tender number PU 8411/019, appointment of investment advisor at the VAR University of Technology. I will go through the bid document, but I won't go through each page of the bid document, colleagues. I'll touch on the highlights, the key aspects, the evaluation criteria, also the scope of work, and etc. etc. And obviously, then at the end, we'll also have a Q&A session where colleagues can also answer questions and get clarity. Colleagues, the front page of the bid is where you'll insert all just your details there. Registered name of tenderer, trading name, registration number, etc. And then you'll see right at the bottom there's a price offer, colleagues, that you need to complete that price offer. You will see there's no sort of itemized pricing schedule. We're giving you all the details in terms of how the contract is managed, how many meetings you're going to have, the type of reports required, and so forth. You have to go and calculate in terms of that scope of work, what is the cost to provide the service, colleagues. So please ensure that the front page, you do obviously insert that price offer. The second page is just a table of contents. I won't go through that. Page 3 is again summarizing what I've highlighted in terms of that the tender is for the appointment of an investment consultant. There you can see the PU, the project number, you can see the description, and it's for a 3-year period, colleagues. It's for a 3-year period. Please note that. We are currently in an online compulsory tender briefing session taking place right now, 10th of June 2022, from 9 to 10. Again, the meeting is a compulsory session. The link to attend the meeting is in the tender document. It was also in the invitation so that colleagues can also obviously attend and log in accordingly. Colleagues, in terms of the bid document, it is purchasable at a non-refundable fee of 1150 via the PERCOSA website. So it's an online payment. No physical cash must be deposited at VUT or PERCO SA. You need to make the payment online. You will see when you go on our tender page, we have several tenders that we're running. You need to click on the specific tender for investment advisor. It will take you to a payment portal. On that payment portal, you'll see right at the bottom, there's a pay now button over which you'll click. It'll take you to our payment service provider that we are using, which is PayFast. On there, you'll see when you get onto the PayFast page, there'll be a list of banks. So you need to select the specific bank that you use for your own online banking. Once you select on that, obviously it will redirect you to the page of the bank. Do your normal activities in terms of logging in and processing the payment accordingly. Colleagues, it's just an interface, so there's no way that your information is captured on the website, the PERCOSA website, or the PERCOSA website being captured on the bank. It's just the interface between the two softwares. So don't obviously your information will not be compromised in that regard. It's a portal that Percocet uses and has been using for many years, so definitely very secure. Once you've processed the payment, you will then be redirected to the Percocet website again, where you're able to download the document. It's all automated, all online, colleagues. It's literally a 5-second process. Once the payment is verified, you are then redirected to the Percocet website. Should you struggle, colleagues, please contact the Percocet office. Pozisa is the contact person on the advert. She'll be able to guide you in terms of how to go about that payment. But really, it's a seamless end-to-end payment portal. Colleagues, in terms of submission of the actual proposals, this is also done online using the Percocet website. In the tender document itself, there is a link where you can submit the actual tender proposal. Colleagues, please, even after the session, go and obviously click on the link, go into the page, familiarize yourself in terms of the process followed in terms of submission. It's a secure, again, submission portal. No one has access to that submission portal until the closing date of the tender. Okay, colleagues. So so between now and the closing date, you are able to go back, upload the document that you need to do. If later you realize that you've uploaded the incorrect document, you're able to go back and make changes so that the system is flexible, interactive in that regard. It's your own unique page. But please, I urge you to please go see how the portal is. And play around with it, colleagues. Again, you're able to access it between now and the closing date. No bids will be allowed to be submitted late. So after the closing time and date, that link will no longer be accessible. Okay, it's important to note that that link will no longer be accessible after the closing date and time, which is Monday, the 20th of June, 23:59. Colleagues, you'll notice that the time span or the timelines of this project are short indeed. It's reflective of the urgency of this project. So we had to run a quick 2-week process in order, obviously, to get appointed advisor as soon as possible for the university. So again, please, again, take into account the short timelines. We request that you please, again, go back and enter the Percocet website, play around with the submission portal, and make sure that you understand and are familiar and comfortable with how it works. Our ICT department is always on standby to assist. But colleagues, again, if you obviously contact us on Monday the 20th at 8 o'clock in the evening, we will not be able to assist. So the important part is that between now and the closing date, you please just go and familiarize yourself with that process. Colleagues, from an inquiries perspective, all inquiries regarding this tender must please be directed to myself. My email address is there, tepo.mampuru@percocet.co.za. Please do not in any way attempt to contact anybody at the university. Colleagues, please let's follow the rules of engagement of the bid. Everything must be written, everything must be communicated via the email address. All answers to questions asked will be shared with everyone who has purchased the bid document. So colleagues, obviously in the spirit of transparency, we'll do that. But then again, please stick to the rules of engagement. In the case that please only written inquiries and only to myself with my email address included in this bid. Page 4 again is just summarizing what I've said earlier in terms of the timelines of the tender, the closing date and time. The validity of the tender is 90 days from date of closure, but I've already alluded to the fact that this is an urgent project. So we'll endeavor to obviously finish it as quickly as possible between the university and ourselves. Um, then these are just standard clauses of the university, colleagues. I won't go too much into it. I do request that you please go and, if you've got a legal department that can go read, interpret these clauses need be. If you're not sure, yes, you can ask us questions, but really the onus is on you to understand each clause of this bid. Colleagues, in line with VUT SCM policy, there is a link again in the tender document where you can attend an opening of the bid. And that will be held the day after the tender closes. But colleagues, again, at that bid opening, we'll only be reading out the names and not the prices. We'll only be reading the names of the bidders that submitted proposals and not the price. It is not a compulsory session, so you don't have to attend. But if you do wish to attend, you are able to attend that session accordingly, colleagues. So please note it's not a compulsory session. Page 5 again is just standard clauses, again emphasizing the communication process that you need to follow. Again, reference to the View to ACM policy that's guiding the facilitation of this process. Again, these are clauses linked to insurance and so forth, so I won't go too much into that. Key point, colleagues, even after the session, you are able to ask questions, but again, I emphasize the time turnaround time on that and the time span on that, colleagues. Again, if you ask me a question on Monday, the 20th of June, unfortunately will not be able to respond. So please stick to the rules of engagement of the tender. Again, the closing time is emphasized there. The link again to the opening of the bids, you're able to go there. Clause F.3.18, colleague, speaks about the POCA service fee, which is a minimum of 2% of the total price value. So included in your price submission, you need to make provision for 2% that will be payable to POCO SA as per the SLA and as per the invoice that you send to the university. So every month, the awarded bidder will be in touch with our finance department. You will share obviously source documents in the form of invoices that you've actually shared to the university. And the total value of that invoice, colleagues, 2% will be billed to you as the supplier. Obviously, I can't dictate how you manage your business. And it's not a separate line item. It's inclusive in the pricing. You just have to make provision for that. Please, colleagues, note that 2% service fee is payable to POCO SA and must be included in your bid price now with your proposal. For those who've never worked with POCO SA before, just a few clarity points. POCO SA is actually owned by all 26 public universities in the country, including VUT. So they started the organization back in 1978, really with the aim of assisting from a procurement facilitation perspective, where the universities are unable to fulfill that obligation from a procurement aspect, they would obviously enlist our services. Again, we are owned by the university. We're an extension of the procurement department. They make use of us on a voluntary basis, and really reasons for use are varied. One could be from capacity issues within the procurement department. One could be political, and another key one is that obviously we come in from a third party perspective. Where obviously we make sure that we facilitate the process and make sure that it's in accordance with the ACM policy. The decision on the use of a service provider or appointment of a service provider still lies with the university. It does not lie with POCO SA. We just make sure we capture all the data and the numbers, draft the report, and give it to the university to make a decision. So that's the relationship of POCO SA. We own by the 26 public universities, including VUT. We have membership of 64 institutions. You'll see that we have TVET colleges that belong to us or belong to the membership. You'll see we have private higher education institutions like the IIE that belong to POCO SA. We also have state-owned entities who are involved in research, your CSIR, your National Research Foundation, and all of those things. So an organization that's been here since 1978, and that's where we obviously fit in this process with regards to VUT. Colleagues, again, emphasizing the 2% service fee that you must please make provision for. Um, then, um, colleagues, in terms of the evaluation, I will quickly go through all of these. So there's obviously a functionality stage and there's obviously a what you call a compulsory returnable schedule. In terms of functionality, it's a point scoring system that we'll go through now, but these are the 4 elements you'll need to satisfy: proof of reference from previous similar contracts completed, lead investment personnel is a requirement, technical approach and methodology, and reporting. Then the list of returnables, colleagues, which are compulsory, meaning that failure to submit any of these requirements will lead to you being disqualified from the tender. The first point, T2.2.A, record of addenda to tender documents. This is only where applicable. So in the case where we issue an addenda after the session, you're required to obviously complete that. If you don't issue an addendum, then it won't be required. Compulsory questionnaire, you need to complete. It is a document in the SPIT document. Resolution for signatory is also a document within this document. I've emphasized the compulsory briefing meeting, which is taking place now. Again, I request that you please insert your company details in the chat box within this forum. That's the mechanism we're going to use to determine that indeed you did attend the session. Additional particulars concerning the tenders, this is also where applicable. Preference schedule document you need to just complete. Submit copy of business entity registration. This is your CRPC document that you need to complete. CSD document that you must submit. And then colleagues registered in terms of the Financial Advisory and Intermediary Services Act. So you need to submit proof of that registration. It's a mandatory requirement that you submit proof of that registration. Then T2.2.J, we require a BCom degree slash honor slash MBA in investment finance economics of lead investment consultant. So the lead investment consultant colleagues, we need to see their qualification and they need to adhere at a minimum to these that we've specified. A BCom degree, honors, MBA in investments, finance, economics of lead investment consultant. Of course, colleagues, we do understand the sector, and obviously we could have listed many other qualifications, but the BSc has determined that these are the ones that they want for this process. So make sure that you submit these aspects. Then the SPD 2, 4, 8, and 9 also must be submitted. SPD 2 is the tax clearance certificates and also completing that document, which is included in this document. SPD4 is your declaration of interest. SPD8 is your declaration of bidders past exchange practices. And SPD9 is your certificate of independent bid determination, which obviously speaks to collusion. Colleagues, failure to adhere to any of these requirements will lead to your bid not being accepted. So I please urge you to please take your time in obviously preparing these documents and then submit them accordingly. There are other several projects that we're running from a VUT aspect, and I always say the same thing, colleagues, that the issue for me is that I really would like all bidders to get to the pricing stage. We are not in the business of eliminating bidders for the sake of eliminating. We do want you to compete, and the only way you'll obviously be able to compete is to get to the final stage where the decisions are made on price and triple BE. Really, I urge you to please look at these aspects and go through them and make sure you submit what is required. Okay, colleagues. Then you'll see the next pages are just cover letters that we're just using to help you in order to submit. So I won't go through that. What I want to go through is just the functionality criteria that speaks to obviously how we're going to evaluate this section of the tender. Functionality, colleagues, is a point scoring phase where obviously you're asked to submit certain documentation and then you score points. For example, the first point is company reference. We need you to provide 3 positive contactable reference that are not older than 3 years on the letterhead of the company. Reference letter should include the following. Reference should confirm that investment portfolio is valued at above 500 million. So again, we're telling you what we want to see in the letter. So we urge you, you obviously these are your clients that you're going to get these letters from, that it must at least stick to the wording that we want. Failure to that, colleagues, then we cannot award those points. Okay, we've got a sliding scale: 3 references 30 points, 2 references 20, 1 reference 10 points, and so on. Then we want the lead investment personnel. Here we're looking at the years of experience. In the first aspect, in the returnable section or the compulsory returnable section, we looked at the qualification. Here we're looking at the years of experience and we'll score points accordingly. Then technical approach and methodology, colleagues, again, should be linked to the deliverers of the project. Again, it's an investment requirement, colleagues. So again, the requirement is that again you stick to this requirement. In the sense that obviously give us a methodology and approach that speaks to what we're requiring. Please, we will see generic proposals. Again, take your time to make sure it speaks to VUT and is aligned to the scope of work of this bid. Liquidity, we'll also check. Obviously, then that means you have to submit your financial statements or some of the most recent audited and or approved financial statements. This is for us just to confirm your liquidity ratio. And then a reporting, submit template of investment report. The template report must include at least the following: economic overview of the past 3 months, 6 points; performance of the financial markets for the past 3 months, 6 points; asset manager risk exposure and asset allocation, 6 points; and asset manager top 10 holdings, 2 points. Again, colleagues, it needs to speak to what you're requiring here. We will see obviously things that are not sticking to what we're requiring. But again, it's like writing an open book exam. Just take your time to make sure that whatever you're submitting speaks to our requirements here. This section is out of 100 points. A minimum of 60 points for functionality is required for further evaluation. So you need to score a minimum of 60 points in order to be considered for the price and triple B stage of the tender. Colleagues, that's the functionality. And then these are just cover letters and so forth. So I won't go much into that. Again, take note there's the price and B evaluation, meaning that you'll need obviously to submit your triple B certificate in order to score points for triple BE. Failure to do that, colleagues, obviously will result in you scoring 0 points for triple BE. So I'm not skipping these pages because they're not important. It's things that I've already covered. These are just aspects in terms of obviously how we're going to evaluate and all the document that you need to submit and so forth. What I do want to do is just move on to the scope of work. Okay, so the scope of work, colleagues, again, we've obviously tried to cover all the bases and give you as much information that you can obviously submit a proposal. But of course, we'll take questions after that. So again, high level, the asset consultant will be responsible for the following asset services: drafting, formulating ongoing review of an investment strategy for the value investment of technology, advising and assisting the Finance and Infrastructure Committee in formulating an investment policy on investment performance, monitoring and measurement in respect of VT investments, determining investment objectives, identifying investment constraints and investment risk relevant to the VUT, provide guidelines for the strategic asset composition of the VUT and or underlying investment portfolios of the VUT, advising the Finance and Infrastructure Committee on selecting investment vehicles for the short term, less than 12 months, medium term, and long term investments of VUT, advising the Finance and Infrastructure Committee on selecting investment fund managers to manage the investments of the VUT, monitoring the performance of the appointed investment fund managers against the VUT investment benchmarks and targets, advising and formulating investment benchmarks and targets where applicable for the VUT, monitoring the investment performance and associated cost of the investment fund managers appointed to manage the investments of the VUT, providing the Finance and Infrastructure Committee with a written quarterly report in the format agreed upon between the parties on investment performance and associated cost of the VUT investments and the various investment fund managers managing those investments, attending the Finance and Infrastructure Committee meetings once a quarter to discuss issues relevant to the VUT investment strategy, as well as to present and discuss the VUT investment and monitoring report. When required, the asset consultant will assist the VUT with ad hoc investment consultancy services other than those referred to in clause above. The investment advisor must be registered in terms of the Financial Advisory in Intermediary Services, which is the FIAS Act. Yusuf, I don't know if there's anything you want to touch on in terms of the scope of work from your side.
Nothing at this stage. I can come in maybe later just to sort of give a brief overview in terms of how things work at VUT in terms of reporting, etc., etc. But that I can do it towards the end when you are done. Thanks.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking because I'm going to open the Q&A, maybe you could do that overview now, and then we can take some questions after.
Okay, that's fine. I think just as a reminder, as Tsepo has already mentioned, I think the colleagues are to enter their contact details in the meeting chat just to confirm their attendance. And just from a just background or overview, the investment report that will be submitted by the investment advisor will be coupled by an internal report that we normally also compile, but it will be mainly the investment advisor report that is then reviewed internally before it is then submitted to the CFO, and thereafter it gets tabled at our management committee. So we have a ManCom, which then in turn reports to, we have a finance and infrastructure committee. We also have an audit risk committee, and those two committees then in turn report to our highest body, which is our council. I think you've been through the scope, so we'll see if there's any questions on the scope. But in addition, the university has investments on a short term as well as long term. So the short term investments, the reasons for that is in order to meet our short term obligations. Obviously, we cannot tie up funds on the long term to meet short term obligations, as well as we have grant funding, which we invest on a short term because which relate to, in most cases, infrastructure projects. And funding is required, for example, when you come to a building project, it's required like to make payments, progress payments on a monthly basis. So therefore, and our project would be probably maybe a year or maybe 18 months duration period, maybe to get that building constructed. So therefore, we have to invest funds on a short-term basis. The long-term portfolio entails investment funds that we've got that cater for our post-employment obligations. For example, we have post-employment obligations, which entail like medical aid benefits for employees that retire. We still have those employees that when they contracted with VUT, at that point in time, there were post-employment medical aid promised to them. So I think that was discontinued from around 2012 moving forward. But there are still employees that are with VUT where the university has committed themselves to continue contributing towards the medical aid even after they retire. So there's funds that are catered for that. And like I said, those are obviously of a long-term nature. And there's also something relating to the actual retirement as well. So there's two parts to it: a medical aid and a retirement. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else much I can say. I think we should maybe start with any questions from the attendees. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Yusuf. Colleagues, I'm going to officially open the Q&A session. I'll request that we follow a process of raising your hand, following which we'll recognize you and give the response accordingly. I won't do the whole issue of taking the questions first and giving answers later. I think as you ask the question, and if we're able to give the answer, then we will do so. So I've officially opened that session, colleagues. Sure. Is the scope of work that clear? Stephen, go ahead.
Good morning, Chairperson, and thank you for the rather clear briefing so far. Just in terms of the submission, on the first page of the document, it requests the submission of the price. To confirm, is that it says annual price, but it is a 3-year contract. So would you like all 3 years cumulatively in the price, or just the first year?
Oh, sorry, I'm speaking now. I'm on mute. No, just the first year, because obviously, increases will be subject to, the price will be subject to annual increases where applicable. So the evaluation will just be based on the first year.
Thank you, Tsepo. And then just to confirm, this is the fee we put here is exclusive of the fee payable to yourselves. That'll be additional or inclusive?
It must be included in your pricing.
So the number here is inclusive?
Yes, inclusive of the 2% service fee.
Noted, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Stephen. Thank you. More questions, colleagues, going once? Stephen, is that a new hand?
Yes, sir. Well, sorry, one last question from our side. Is it possible for you to share the existing investment policy statement for the university so that we can ensure that the submission is specifically catered to your requirements?
Yusuf, is that possible?
Yeah, I think that's possible. I will attend to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, Tsepo, just one more thing. Just want to make it clear, even though, yes, annual fee will be quoted, we would obviously be paying the investment advisor on a quarterly basis. So they would then invoice us a quarterly, a quarter of that fee, if you follow what I'm saying, because that's how it's been always working. So if, for example, Jan, Feb, March, we would normally receive an invoice in the month of April, and we would obviously try to pay that by the end of April. That's how it was normally working. Thanks.
Thanks, Yusuf. Rob?
Yeah, thanks. Just following on from Stephen's question, are you able to give us the fund structure just to understand the complexity or otherwise? That's occasionally included in the IPS, but not necessarily.
Okay, Yusuf?
Okay, I'm just trying to understand you clearly, Rob. Like I mentioned, most of the funds are tied up in money market. So obviously that is where there's minimal risk exposure compared to the other funds, as I mentioned, which is of a long-term nature. That entails medical aid, post-employment obligations, and there's also a retirement aspect there. What I can also say is that currently we have 3 fund managers that we make use of. 2 of them actually is where the money market funds are invested, and 1 of them is basically handling the long-term funds.
Okay, perfect. That's fine. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Rob. Round of questions, colleagues, going twice. I think while you're still thinking of further questions, colleagues, again, a reminder to include your company details on the meeting box, which is what you're going to use to verify your attendance of the session. So please continue to ensure that your details are all captured there. And then, colleagues, also just a reminder again of the method of submission. It's online via the Percussor website. The submission link is in the bid document itself. We urge you again to, after the session, go and obviously use that link and ensure that you can access it easily. You're familiar in terms of the documents that you need to submit and all of those things. I can assure you from a size perspective, the system is capable of, handling all sides of files. We run huge construction tenders using the system, so we don't have issues around that. But again, with technology, colleagues, anything can happen. So don't wait for the last minute in order to start your submission. Please start early, put your documents together and start submitting. Obviously, finalize your submission before the closing date and time. Colleagues, I'm not seeing any hands. So I'll take it that we will close the Q&A session. Yusuf, any last comments from your side before we proceed to close?
Nothing from my side. Just a reminder for the colleagues to enter their details in the meeting chat. Thanks.
Thank you. So in terms of those documents that you're going to send us, colleagues, then we're going to use the email addresses in the matchbox to send you those documents. I'm not too sure of the size. If the size is too big for email, then what we'll do is we'll upload it on our website so that you can easily access it. I'm sure, Yusuf, that should be fine.
That should be fine. As far as I know, it won't be a big file. I'll send it through to you, Tshepo, and then you can disseminate it.
Okay, no problem. From my side, colleagues, is to wish you the best of luck. I do hope that we get submissions from each and one of you. For me, again, procurement process is about making sure you get enough competition so that we can get the best value in the market. So I do hope, again, that you take your time in preparing your documentation and make sure that you're obviously compliant, at least with the hurdle requirements and functionality stage of the tender, so that we can assess you from a value proposition, which is really from the pricing and triple BB aspect. A reminder again, your details on the matchbox to confirm attendance of the session. Again, online submission, via the Percussor website. And lastly, colleagues, if you still have any other questions post the session, you are able to send them, but be cognizant, of course, of the timelines and all of those things, and obviously read the document clearly in terms of the rules around that. Colleagues, thank you for your time. Wishing again the best of luck and enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, colleagues, for your attendance. Bye.